74% of enterprises say identity modernization is the biggest barrier to cloud transformation, yet only 29% feel confident that their ability to migrate or synchronize complex hybrid directories without disruption. My name is Paul Nashawaty. I'm the practice lead and principal analyst for the app dev practice. And I'm joined by BitTitan and PowerSync Pro, Eric and Conrad. Great to have you here. Eric, why don't you introduce BitTitan?
Sure. I'm Eric Franklin. I'm the Director of Sales here at BitTitan for the Americas team. We're here at Ignite. And BitTitan, if you're not aware, we're the market leader in data migrations for Mail, OneDrive, Teams, and SharePoint.
Super exciting to have you here. Conrad, you want to introduce PowerSync Pro?
Yeah, hi there, Paul. Conrad Murray. I'm one of the founding directors and product owner of the PowerSync Pro solution. Likewise, we're here at Microsoft Ignite. Very excited to talk about our partnership with BitTitan and the PowerSync Pro team here are all doing great work. So it's good times.
Yeah, this is definitely exciting times. I mean, at Microsoft Ignite, lots of exciting announcements happening at the show. But this BitTitan and PowerSync Pro formal partnership really is kind of arriving at the right time. It's really bringing together that complementary strengths of the workload migration, directory synchronization, and enterprise scale automation. So I think that's a big part of this. So when we look at combining the offerings, it really helps remove the identity bottlenecks, but also has made it really easier for large scale modernization, extensive projects to be less risky and increase acceleration. So let's just jump right in. I'm going to ask a quick question here, and Conrad, I'll start with you. When we think about what the partnership is bringing together, why is now the right moment for BitTitan to formalize the partnership with PowerSync Pro, and why do customers need this, and what is the problems that it's solving?
As Eric said, we're well aware and have been users of the BitTitan product for years and years and years ourselves and our partners and our services. Their mailbox migrations are second to none. But having, I don't always like the saying, but a single throat to choke, to have a place where you can go and do your workload data migrations, be it tenant to tenant or on-prem to tenant. But everything that underpins those migrations is actually getting the identity piece right from the very start. You can't start migrating mailboxes and OneDrives without the identity in place. And with the PowerSync Pro solution, it allows you to do your directory synchronization, be that AD to AD, AD to Entra, Entra to Entra, Google to AD, Google to Entra. And the key component around that is getting your attribute settings right, getting those users and groups stood up in the platform. So with the directory sync and the PowerSync Pro part, you were talking about that modernization. It could be an AD modernization, collapsing domains, going to greenfield. But over and above that, it's that story and the journey for the user. So on the migration day and the migration cutover on the first day, being able to reprocess their workstation and their Windows profile and having that end user experience being simplified. Over and above that, having the ability for devices to go cloud native to Entra join directly from hybrid. So when organizations are getting out of their on-prem Active Directory, that modernizing and going to cloud only, this is exactly the solution it's going to give them.
No, it definitely sounds like it's reducing complexity and providing a faster time to value, which I think is incredibly important, especially when you look at modernization projects. Eric, anything to add to that comment?
If we look at it from the BitTitan perspective, we've had a good solution for the workloads that we support, but there were two big gaps in the market where our customers were asking us to step up. And one of them is being able to reconfigure workstations up front, and the other was to have a world-class AD solution to be able to deal with an AD migration. Those are the things that we needed. They were things that our customers expected us to be able to do for them that went along with our other tools. And having the partnership with PowerSync Pro enables us to offer really a best-in-class solution out the gate. There's not a need for us to develop it. Their solution, just being here at the show and watching people look at it and watching the heads nod and go, that's awesome.
Yeah, very cool.
Why you guys are working together. And to me, when you get that kind of validation from the event, it makes you think, yeah, this is exactly what we needed to do. So
it's super exciting when you see clients and prospects look at it and go, they like to get that aha moment, like they just figure it out and they go, that is really, really cool. But Eric, how does MigrationWiz and PowerSync Pro, DirectorySync, and MigrationAgent, how do they complement each other in complex AD and Entra ID modernization projects? How does that work?
So the complement really is, people don't want to have a lot of disparate tools out there to do a migration. They want, Conrad used the term one throat to choke. They want to have tools that work together, that they know one thing you're doing is not going to step on something else that you're doing as well. So having something that works together well is really important. It simplifies it. That you've got the complete migration tool set that you need to do a great job with it, and you've got a team behind that knows what they're doing and supports you as you have questions that come up in the process.
So, Conrad, what are your thoughts? I mean, is what Eric's saying true? Does it happen? Does it work this way? Or what's going on with PowerSync Pro?
Absolutely, Paul. We're on to, this is version 3.2, went GA this month, in time for Ignite. And as I was saying, the underpinning of any project, migration project, it all starts with identity. And genuinely, our DirectorySync tool was unreal. And the key part, where you're not having to do manual scripting and all those kind of clunky things, it's just automated joiners and levers, movers, changes, additions, renames, groups and group memberships. But the fact that you can rewrite the attributes from source to target means that you can do all of that underlying directory synchronization with confidence. And just to add, what Eric was saying about having a world-class solution to support the active directory migrations, because our solution will repermission servers and the application on the server with SQL and IIS, the synchronization of the SID history, passwords, modern password sync. So it gives full confidence to any of those people that are going to be doing those sort of projects. And absolutely what Eric was saying, we've had people coming up to the booth and just nodding and going, yeah, this is exactly what I've been asking for and for needing. And having a single place that they can transact through the BitTitan portal, that just makes their life easier.
Very cool, very cool. Let's talk about Active Directory, right? We know that there's a new Active Directory V2 update. We know that there's some big enhancements that happen. But how do these, and Conrad, I'll come to you with this, how do these new updates or the V2 updates, how do they improve scalability, automation, and for the customer experience? What does that mean for the customer?
Well, how can I put this? So we've got clients that are using directory synchronization, and we pretty much, at the speed of the DirectorySync is, it's blazing fast. It's been built from performance upwards from day one. We sync about 200 to 300 Active Directory objects a second. We've got organizations with 250,000 objects. Once they've done their full imports and exports and sync, we're doing delta changes, checks in under 5 minutes, right? So that's really critical at an enterprise scale migration. And as I mentioned, with Windows Server 2025 and RC4 and the NT hash going away for modern password sync, so we have these password sync agents that'll cope with that. You can do reverse password sync. With the remote sync agents and proxy agents, you can have disconnected networks. So you've got two Active Directories and two different networks. You can have an agent sitting in each of those environments, just running up through a single port, connecting up to the PowerSync Pro environment and doing that directory synchronization. They're really key features that have been asked for generally quite often, that people want to have that disconnected network situation and blazing fast directory synchronization.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you're addressing a problem that, where you had silos or fragmentation before. Now it's coming together as a unified approach. Awesome. Very cool. So, Eric, let's talk about some examples, right? Can you share some examples of the type of challenges that Active Directory and, these scenarios kind of combined together have really been handled more effectively, like when you look at it from that perspective?
Sure. If we look at a couple of different things, if you're looking at a really, really large migration, so imagine one big company buying another big company, they're likely going to need a long-term coexistence type synchronization going on for Active Directory. And this tool lends itself very well to that. It has the granularity. So if an organization is doing a divestiture, for example, to be able to pull out the users that need to be transitioned off to the new organization and be able to deal with that comprehensively as well. So those are the kinds of things when we look at this and go, yeah, this is a heavy duty tool that can take a 50,000 seat organization and do a transition, and you'll feel really good about the speed that it's happening at and the ability to have coexistence during the process for the length of time that you need it.
Yeah. So, but Eric, Conrad mentioned these distributed environments, these different, maybe disconnected environments that at one point need to come together. That's a big challenge. I mean, we see in our own research that hybrid and distributed environments are really on the rise, right? But how does BitTitan really position itself to simplify these large-scale identity and directory migrations?
So, to simplify it, if you think about it, there's all the different workloads that are part of it. You have to look at them individually in some respects. So we're great at moving the mailboxes over. We're great at dealing with OneDrive and the other parts of this. Where our strength was in AD and being able to manage that process, and that's where PowerSync Pro comes in and helps us be able to have that sync going on over the term that it needs to be able to meet the customer's requirements. That's not a capability that we've had internally for a long time. So we have an AD product, but it's not the same as what PowerSync Pro brings to this, and that's why when we look at the bigger deals that we chase and look at the requirements, PowerSync Pro meets those needs and helps us be an obvious solution between the things that they bring to the table and the things we bring to the table as a provider for that deal.
Yeah, it sounds like it makes it far more robust from the offering.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I could, just to chip into that, you mentioned divestitures there. A couple of the features that the DirectorySync's always had. We have this ability to do complex scoping, matching, and mapping of attributes. And when I talk about the complex scoping, it could be that, some of the DirectorySync tools are a bit clunky. Say you can pick by OU, you can pick by domain, but we go right down to attribute picking and even a complex set of attribute mapping. So you could say, I'm going to divest, the New York sales team with someone whose surname begins with or ends with Jones. You get really granular. So divesting is actually quite a challenging option. And the other thing, really talking about those mergers, when you have two companies, company A, company B, it's not quite the low-hanging fruit, but ironically, the easier part is actually migrating the workloads up front. You can do your mailboxes and your OneDrive and your Teams, and it's challenging, don't get me wrong. But ultimately doing an Active Directory migration, I want to collapse down those two ADs. But with the use of using the workstation migration agent to migrate devices between ADs, you can do the application reconfiguration on the devices in advance and then come along afterwards and do your AD migrations following on. So you can do a two-phased approach. And you could even have your machine still living in the home Active Directory that used to be hybrid joined to tenant A, but keep them in that same AD, but actually configure the agent to say, go and configure yourself a hybrid join to tenant B, and then we'll come along and do that AD migration afterwards.
Yeah, Conrad, you kind of hit the nail on the head there. I was going to ask you about the differentiation. You kind of highlighted a lot of it right there. Is there anything that's really, I know there's multiple roads to the same destination, right? You can choose different paths. And really, in my view, the conversations I hear is skill gap and complexity are the main challenges that organizations run into. And it sounds like what you're providing here is a faster time to value, faster resolution, but also reducing the complexity that allows for an easier, lack of a better way of saying it, reduces your TCO, right? It reduces all the pieces that you have to kind of build to put together. Is that fair?
Oh, absolutely, Paul. Listen, I could talk for days about that. I actually wrote, there's a couple of blogs up on the PowerSync Pro site. One is why you would use a tool for DirectorySync over doing scripting. Clearly, that should be obvious. But in terms of, we really drill in on that total cost of ownership. And actually, when you're doing the workstation migrations, the downtime trying to migrate a device, if a user has to get themselves up and running on day one, and they could be hours doing it, they could be logging a help desk call, they have to have a second line support engineer. Look, listen, we're migrating devices in under 10 minutes. So, they're back up and running within, half an hour, they're back productive, opening up their mail, getting on with their job, which is important. You're asking about some of those differentiators. Genuinely, I can, hand on heart guarantee the setup time to get up and running with our tool, the documentation, the whole process from end to end, the way we license the product, and that speed of DirectorySync, people they won't understand just how fast this is, the security aspects, the ability to do this complex scoping with complex expressions and matching and attribute rewrites. It's just an absolute winner. The other thing that we do that, like some other tools out there, they're not doing, we're one of the only or few tools out there that do Google directory to AD. So when people are making there's a lot of people out there maybe decided that actually, the modern desktop place for them is going to be Google, or they're acquiring Google shops, the Google to AD sync. And a lot of those Google devices are work group devices. They've never joined an AD. They've never joined an Entra, and they need to get them onboarded into Entra. This is where PowerSync Pro has a part to play, because it can transition a work group joined device.
Yeah, I mean, super interesting, very important. Again, the more I'm hearing about the adoption of AI and agents and such, this is absolutely imperative that you have a faster time to getting things in place and reducing that level of complexity, but also have the robust functionality to get it done. So, Eric, hey, why announce this at Microsoft Ignite? It's a big show. Lots happening here. Is there a broader connection to enterprise cloud modernization, or is there other reasons to do it?
If you look at what Ignite is all about, this year it's about AI and AI adoption. So it's at the top of everyone's mind. People are here to learn best practices. They're here to learn more from Microsoft about the product changes that they're making. But to be able to take advantage of AI, you have to have your environment in a place where it's going to work well. So getting your environment to the place where you have access to use the world-class AI tools is a big part of that. And migrations are frequently part of that conversation. So us being here and announcing this at this show is really the right time and the right place. The other thing is we have access to all the people that we would want to talk to about this and have the ability to sit down and do a brief demo if we need to. And we can have a tremendous number of conversations in a short amount of time to highlight this new capability that we've got. So that's been a great part of doing this here rather than as a press release somewhere.
No, I agree. I think having it live and showing it is really the powers and the impact of seeing it. It's really, really cool. Eric, while I have you, closing thoughts here. So looking ahead, we're sitting here at Microsoft Ignite 2026. Where do you see, BitTitan and its evolution and directory modernization capabilities? What do you want to see happen a year from now?
I think just like everyone else here at the show, we're looking at AI and how we can adopt AI into this process. So we've done things like spun up the ability to use AI in our support experience, and it gives you some really cool options to go out there and say, I'd like the answer to this question. And by the way, I'd like it in French or a language that maybe we didn't support in our system previously. So AI adds a ton of value. I'd really like to see us get to a point where we're using AI in the scoping of the projects up front. And I think that's one of those things at the top of our mind where we're starting to consider how that might help too.
Yeah, I agree. I think you're spot on. Conrad, same question. Where's PowerSync Pro go a year from now at Microsoft Ignite 2026?
Yeah, well, I just wanted to answer the other question as well. It's like, you asked, why make the announcement now? Why do it at Ignite? But, well, why wouldn't you, right? There's 17,000 people here. This is like Microsoft's leading premier event. It just seems so obvious that this is exactly where you do the announcement. And as Eric said, some of the conversations we've been having at the booth has been incredible. Some people are super excited about it. We have been doing heaps of demos. Where do we look in 2026? Yeah, I mean, everyone's talking AI and Copilot, and actually a little bit of answer to that, how does this tool help? Because if you get Copilot's going to work with everyone in one place and on a tenant, and having cloud native authentication for users and devices. So getting all the users in one place to leverage Copilot in the same tenant rather than cross-tenant is crucial for their business going forward. 2026, we're exploring the Copilot stuff in much the same way that Eric and their team are, that we want to be able to have a large language model which interrogates our documentation and presents an answer to those solutions. We also want to do, because in a project at scale, the discovery and preparation piece, and I talked about identity underpinning everything that you do, but also you have the workload understanding. So, where you're using your BitTitan for your mailboxes and your OneDrive, but you also need to understand the size of that data, how many people have an archive mailbox, how many people share mailboxes, if they're unlicensed in the source or unlicensed in the target, what does their OneDrive, their Teams, their SharePoint look like? So it's really, when you eat, sleep, and breathe the migration space, your understanding and concept of the tooling that you want to use is slightly different maybe to the average attendee today. So I'm always thinking, how can I make my migration project smoother, more seamless? How much work can I do in advance to prep for my migration? And that's where we've been thinking about, okay, well, how can we use AI to discover the existing tenant and Active Directory workload information, and then ask the questions I need to get me the answers to build my project plan, to build my high-level design, my low-level design, by getting that discovery, which I'm kind of all doing manually with scripts and eyeballing at the moment.
Well, lots to unpack here, lots to think about, and thank you both for thinking about this stuff so your audience, your customers, and your prospects don't have to worry about it, right? This is something that you're going to take off their shoulders. So really, really great. Thank you for coming to you live from the show floor at Microsoft Ignite as well. Awesome show, lots happening, and thanks for joining on the podcast. And a big thanks to you all who tuned in. We do really appreciate you being part of the App Dev Angle community. But for now, that wraps up this episode, and we'll be back next Wednesday for another conversation driving the tools, trends, and talents shaping the future of application development. So whether you're deploying at the edge, building with AI, or modernizing your cloud stack, we've got you covered. Be sure to follow us on social if you have any thoughts, questions, or just want to connect. Until next time, stay curious and stay building.